I'm Diane, I'm an addict. And it's really a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be able to be of service. And I feel privileged that y'all allow me to do service here in Narcotics Anonymous. It's been a minute. The last time I spoke at a convention was in Rochester, New York. It's been a few years. I travel a lot, but things happen when they happen for a reason, you know. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you all are here. It's funny. I never really get nervous until like just that last 5 minutes. But today, it seemed like about every 45 minutes, somebody would like stop me and say, "You nervous? You nervous?" I mean, I had to run to Charleston. Water my plants and bring in the mail, you know, because some idiot had ordered a bunch of shit off of Amazon that was sitting on my front porch. So I had to get that taken care of. But I had to run up to the Walmart, and like two people in the parking lot walking by, and they're like, "Hey, you're sharing tonight, you know. You nervous?" But it really isn't about me. I was taught that really early on, that it really isn't about me. It's about the message. You know, it's about the things that bring us together here in Narcotics Anonymous. We've been studying with a couple of sponsees and we've been studying Tradition 5 again. You know, it talks about just how important our message is. The individual isn't important. The personality isn't important. The power is in the message. The healing power is in the message in Narcotics Anonymous. You know, it's that energy that can be felt in the room. It's that energy that can be felt here at Ripley, like walking around. You know, that magic language, that wordless language, you know, of empathy, recognition, you know, that allows us to feel time and touch reality. You know, because we can get really outside of reality, you know, at any given moment. You know, can be in reality 1 minute and then crazy as a loon the next. And somehow, when we stay keep ourselves inside the circle in Narcotics Anonymous, somehow we're able to be okay. You know, and I know that isn't due to me. My track record indicates, you know, I'm here, we're survivors of the same catastrophe. You know, I failed, and failing was never my intention. You know, failing isn't something that I like, and I certainly never set out to fail. I was trying really hard to get it right. You know, from very early on, you know, I struggled with life on life's terms, and I didn't know why. I didn't know why I didn't feel a part of. I did at one point, even in grammar school, as a small child, at one point I actually really did think I must be an alien, you know, because I just felt so different than everybody else. And when I got here and I read that in the basic text, I'm like, what? You know, because I actually remember saying, please come back and get me, you know, because y'all left me in this strange place and I obviously don't belong here, you know. But I was always trying. I wanted to belong. I wanted to connect with other people. I didn't know how, you know. So, you know, over the years, I started making up things like, well, I'm just a loner, you know. I'm a rebel without a cause, you know. I'm a rule breaker. I don't give a damn. You know, all the things that I said to try to make myself be okay with my inability, you know, to manage life on life's terms. It was difficult for me. You know, so I took the road that a lot of us took. I took the rebellious road. Got in trouble like very, very early on. I started being in trouble a lot. I noticed very early on things that were difficult. I remember I would be like, you know, gonna go clean my room. Like, I'm gonna go clean my room. And I'm walking through the house, and my mom would say, Diane, go clean your room. And you know, I would say, now fuck it, now I can't clean my room. You know, you ruined it. You know, I can't possibly clean my room now because you told me to. And that never served me. You know, I mean, those attitudes and behaviors never really served me. They were destroying me, but I didn't know how to act any other way, and I clung to them, you know, the non-existent virtues, you know, well, and they used to say things about me, they said, what'd they say, we used to play, you know that game, I don't know if you guys ever played this game when you were kids, but it'd be like, you know, it was like tag, but then somebody, you know, hold you down and then you had to surrender. You know, you had to surrender. Well, they'd be like, forget about Diane, because you'd have to kill her before she'll surrender. You know, because it didn't matter. I was not going to admit that you got the best of me. You know, and those things didn't really serve me either. That's some of that tenacity, you know, that took me into such extremes in the using. You know, the basic text talks, you know, tells us about, you know, some of us had to go to greater extremes than others. You know, and that's not like a competition. That's not a challenge. If you haven't gone to that greater extreme, you don't have to. You don't have to. But I was extremely hard-headed, and I don't like to give up. You know, I never like to admit failure. You know, so even in the using, and I was trying to get it right, you know, for the longest time, and then we limited, switched, you know, I'm going to try this one, or I'm only going to do this on the weekend. I'm only going to use on the weekend. You know, I took periods of abstinence where I was totally miserable. But I remember I went through a couple of years where on New Year's, you know, my New Year's resolution, I'm not going to, you know, drink or use any drugs for the month of January. And that was just so I could prove to myself that I didn't have a problem. Well, not knowing that people who don't have a problem don't feel the need to prove to themselves that they don't. You know, and you know, and it just kind of like went on for some years. You know, I tried getting married, got the little white house with the picket fence, and I thought, you know, maybe I can be okay then. I mean, this is how the confusion and contradictions that I lived in, I'm like, I didn't know how to be happy. You know, I know when I used, you know, it seemed like I could handle, now I can handle everything when I used. That had happened. But I didn't know how to be happy, and I saw happy people on TV, which I know now it was fiction. But I thought if I did what they did, maybe I would be happy, and I would try those things. I would do the things that, you know, the girls I was in high school with, you know, they were married, they had kids, they had the picket fence. They seemed to be happy and well-adjusted, and I did all that, and I still wasn't okay. As a matter of fact, you know, I was less than okay. You know, I was always feeling inadequate. I don't know how to do this. You know, I don't know how to bring, you know, the cookies to the school, you know, and to be that mom. You know, I feel so odd here. You know, I don't really know how to do it. And at some point, I quit trying. At some point I quit trying, and I picked up that one that I couldn't put down, you know, and it was just such a I mean, going from you know, living in the townhouse, you know, the husband's in medical school, you know, literally one day, and the next day I'm on the other side of the railroad tracks and I'm robbing people. You know, and I'm in and out of jail, and I became so vicious and so violent and so crazy. I remember I called my sister in New York. I was down in Texas. I called my sister and asked her if she would come and get my daughter, because I knew that I couldn't take care of her, and that I wasn't. But I also believed that I couldn't, and that I was just going to die using. I couldn't. At that point, there was no pretending that maybe I could stop. It was. I just totally. She came and got my daughter. I put, everything I owned. I just put on an outfit. I opened up the door to my apartment, and I just told my neighbors to help themselves. And I went on a spree that lasted a couple of years. You know, I became that person who I really didn't want to be. I don't know. I mean, I robbed people. I went back to a place that I had worked at, and the man had actually tried to help me. He saw I was in trouble, and he had actually tried to talk to me and help me. And I answered that by going back and robbing him, you know, and taking the safe. And I was never able to make amends for that. But, you know, I felt just so worse about it because he had tried to help me. You know, and I really at that point had developed a mindset where I'm just doing what I have to do. You know what I mean? Like there was no real feeling behind it. The feelings were there, but oblivion was preferable. You know, and I kept myself in oblivion so that I could make it through the day. You know, more drugs, more often. And I can't even, like today it's hard for me to even imagine the person that I had become. You know, that I couldn't imagine even doing those things today. But I know for a fact that returning back to the animalistic level doesn't take but a minute. And I know that for a fact because I was able to survive. I don't know how I survived. Well, I know now in my higher power. You know, there were those times because I was in real rough neighborhoods, and I was crazy, and I remember going to score over in South Dallas, and going to score, and somebody outside the house. When I came back out, I mean, there were literally hundreds of people. And when I came back out, you know, put a gun to my head and wanted what I had just purchased. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to go ahead and use that gun because I'm not giving you shit. And then I got in my car and went right around the block and then tried to run them over. You know, I mean, I was just, and they like, she's fearless. And like, no, I was insane. I was calling my sister to come and get my daughter. That was that thing that I had nothing left to lose. You know, I really felt I had nothing left to lose at that point. And but apparently my higher power, who looked out for me, you know, I had things down to a science. I knew that if I stole this much, it's just going to be a 30-day ticket. I'm going to go in 30 days, and you would get 3 for 1 in Fort Worth at that time. So that just really, you know, a couple of nights sleep and a couple of meals, and I'm back on the run again. And then if that was like anything under 200, and if going to be over that, I was going to go big, so it'd be worthwhile. You know, I hung around with. I remember the DA came and picked me up one time at the crack house. Came and picked me up and drove me around. Apparently I was on camera. They had me on camera with the guy who, and I knew it at the time. We went to go rob some places, and I know we went to this convenience store, and the guy was there alone, the guy saw what we were doing and was going to fight back, and the guy I was with looked at me, and I saw in his eye that he was going to kill the man. And I was like, I was not down, I wasn't that far gone yet. But, and so he, needless to say, he dropped me off. You know, but that's why the DA had come and picked me up, because they had me on camera with this man, and he killed a lot of people. And I'm just like grateful, you know how we say, the not yet. Like that was that line. I wasn't going to kill somebody for a piece of crap. I just wasn't going to do it, you know, but I'm not confident that I wouldn't someday. Because every line that I set, eventually I crossed. So that's one of the things that keeps me here. You know, and I ended up in prison, which probably saved my life. There's more to that story, but we don't need it all. Y'all know it. But, and I ended up in prison for a couple of years, and I thought, you know, well, it was enough that I was, those couple of years gave me time away from the madness, you know, not knowing that I was an addict still, not knowing the disease of addiction, just thinking it's a drug problem, not knowing, you know, that I was actually still in the madness. We were just in prison and not using, but, you know, not knowing that. And then, you know, making a plan. I made a plan. You know, I made a plan. When I got out of prison, they got me over in Austin. I had never been in Austin, and I said, I'm just not going to associate with anybody who uses or drinks. This is my plan, you know, so that I'm not going to. And I went to a couple meetings here and there, not real serious about it, you know. And that plan, I mean, I was successful. I ended up, you know, able to get a job, get a place to live, get off parole, got an associate's degree, magna cum laude, whatever. You know, it all looked really good on paper. Looked really good on paper. I got all that done, got off parole. Finally, I can get the fuck out of Texas. I was on paper for like ever in Texas. And I go home. And I wasn't home that long before, because I think between the time in prison and then finishing parole and all that, 5 or 6 years, I didn't pick up. And I thought I was different, but I still wasn't happy and I wasn't okay, but I didn't know it was me. You know, I still knew that there's something wrong with me, that I can't be happy, but also I was just one of those people that shit happened to, you know, and that I had married the same asshole. He just looked different. Second marriage, because I'm like, I'm going to do it better this time. I'm going to do it different. I'm okay now. I haven't used in years, you know. And then life on life's terms was still too much for me to handle. It was so stressful, you know, and everything was so hard. And you know, people were just so. I always thought it was the other people, you know, and my family's looking at me funny, and they actually, you know, they tried to help me, working for my younger sister, and I was actually doing really well. We were making a lot of money, but I wasn't okay. We were arguing all the time at home, and eventually we got separated. I was doing dishes one night, and I heard on the TV or something that somebody had gotten stabbed. Now, Myra, in my mind went, oh, that's where it's at. And I headed right there. And that was like, I don't know how long that run lasted. I don't think 2 weeks. I don't really know. And it doesn't really matter, but I know that I was at the animalistic level within a couple of days. You know, so that's when I knew, when I got to Narcotics Anonymous and they talked about I wasn't okay with or without drugs. I understood that. I was able to hear. I was relieved. I'm one of those addicts that I was relieved to find out that I had a disease, not a moral deficiency. That the disease of addiction was what was kicking my ass. You know, the drugs were just a symptom. Because I knew because I had already taken the drugs away and I still wasn't okay. You know, that was a life that seemed like a life sentence. How am I going to survive without using? You know, how am I going to, like I got here and they said, you know, just for today, right? We're going to live and enjoy life without the use of drugs. Like, how do you do that? You know, what's that about? How does that happen? Well, the people in the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous began to show me how that happened. You know, they told me just keep coming back. Get phone numbers. use them. You know, I got other people to go with me. I think the first year in Narcotics Anonymous, I went to a convention like every month. I was very crazy. I was that one you didn't want to see coming. You know, like, you probably would have voted me least likely to succeed. You know, I still had all the mannerisms, all the behaviors. I didn't understand why the police were still pulling me over. Don't you know, I've been clean for 30 days. Why are you fucking with me? You know, why are you picking on me? You know, I didn't understand why people are still looking at me funny. You know, my family, you know, it took them some time to gain that trust back. You know, but something happened on that last run, and I remember hearing my oldest daughter's, you know, voice on the phone, and she's like, Mom, are you going to do, because I had now another 2-year-old, and she's like, are you going to do to him what you did to me? And that killed me. I mean, that literally killed me. There was no fight left in me when I got here. I was at a point, I was at the level, that's what it took for me to get to the desperation that I needed. And then it took me another 10 years of being here before I understood why desperation is a gift. You know, that's some of the stuff you hear when you first get here. It sounds so foreign and unfamiliar, and it's just like, how in the hell is desperation a gift? These people are crazy. You know, how is practicing honesty, you know, going to keep me from using? You know, what is it, these principles? Why do they keep saying these steps are, it's an action, it's an action? And I'm like, what action? You know, can somebody please walk me through that process? What does that look like? You know, it sounds pretty. You know, what does it look like? Other addicts were sharing how blessed they were, how great their life was. And I'm like, what is that process? How can you know, what was your process? Can you explain it to me so that I can practice it, you know, so that I can be blessed? You know, and I began to learn. I began to read the literature, you know, and I began to understand that literature spoke to me in a voice, you know, that just can't be duplicated. And we talk about in the preface to the Sixth Tradition. You know, the basic text spoke to me. It knew me better than I knew myself. For some reason, I started to feel I didn't understand what was going on here, but I did start to gain the hope that maybe I could be okay. You know, that maybe I could be okay. I saw other addicts that were making it. They weren't just making it. They were happy. They weren't just getting by. They were being successful. They were being happy. They were at peace. And they had a confidence, you know, that I had never really seen before. Those are the things, you know, that's what I wanted. I wanted some substance. You know, I didn't have anything. I was so wishy-washy on the inside. You know, spending a lifetime of not knowing who I really was, just making up stuff. You know, and then trying to live that out. You know, I remember ex number one used to say, you know, I mean, he thought it was great. He'd be like, I never know who's going to be there when I get home. You know, talking about all my personalities. You know, and that, you know, was interesting, kept life interesting for him, I guess, but it was hurtful to me because I wasn't trying to be a bunch of different personalities. You know, I was just trying to be myself, and I had lost who that was. You know, I found out who I was, or I'm finding out still who I am here in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous through working the 12 steps. You know, it's allowed me to become a person that I'm no longer ashamed of. You know, it's taken the low self-esteem. I just wanted to be okay. I remember I used to say that. I just want to be okay in my own skin. I want to be able to sit here and not feel like I have a gut full of garbage, you know, or that you know, that I shouldn't It does a lot. It said when we lie, cheat, steal other addicts, you know, we degrade ourselves in our own eyes, and that's how I felt. That's how I walked around here in the beginning. And when you take the drugs away, well, then there's some rawness. You know, it can feel rough. It can feel real uncomfortable. You know, I felt like a flayed fish. You know, they told me vulnerability equals growth. You've got to become vulnerable. You've got to start being honest about who you feel and how you feel and, you know, who you are. And that was a challenge. Like, it took a while. It's a breaking down, building up process. You know, I remember being at like a year clean, like asking myself, you know, because at a year clean, I've always been a good reader. I could spout out the basic text and how it works, you know, share real pretty. But I'm like, I'm like, Diane, what actual changes have you made? You know, what process have you worked through? How are you different? You know, and I started, I ended up, you know, getting in a relationship. And it wasn't long before I was like, damn, now I'm in the same damn relationship with the 2 ex-husbands that I divorced. You know, and it finally realized that it was me. You know, I realized that it was me that wasn't changing. That I would perpetuate my own patterns. You know, you start reading this stuff and you're like, man, will you just tell me what it is I'm doing so I can stop doing it? So that I can start getting something different. And y'all told me it doesn't really work that way. You're going to have to do your own work. We can't fix it for you. You know, we couldn't fix ourselves. You know, we don't have the power, and it's, you know, part of the humility. I don't have the power, you know, to change anybody. I didn't have the power to change myself. The Narcotics Anonymous has the power to change. That's where the power is. And when I work the Narcotics Anonymous program, it produces change in me. And it's miraculous what has transpired. It is totally miraculous. The life that I live today. I never intended to live this long. I never thought that I'd be worried about, you know, or even thinking about 401ks, you know, retirement. That wasn't in the cards, you know, quality of life. You know, I try to take care of myself. I eat organic. You know, I try to exercise because I wanna live and enjoy life, and I'm starting to find out how you can do that. You know, I like to kayak. You know, like hobbies. People told me, well, we try new things on an experimental basis. We don't have to like everything we try, but we got to try stuff, and we especially got to try some stuff we don't think we're going to like. You know, we have to stop limiting ourselves. The only limitations that we have are the ones that we put on ourselves. You know, we need to learn to get out of our own way. You know, Diane versus Diane. Nobody was hurting me. I was hurting myself. I was volunteering. Not only was I volunteering, I was insisting that I had the right to stay sick. Non-existent virtues. You know, how insane is that? I know that I'm destroying myself. I know that I'm hurting everybody that I love and everybody that loves me. But I'm like too proud, you know, or too arrogant, not knowing that arrogant comes in a lot of different forms, you know, because I always thought I was a kind person until I did my first 4-step, and yeah, I do have kindness in me, but that's not what I was putting down. That's not what I was projecting out to the world. You know, that was some of the confusions and contradictions. I didn't want to be, you know, a mean person, but when I would walk through the room, everybody would like separate the waters. You know, I guess you're not as great, you know, but it took, like, I didn't even see those things happening. Like the 4-step talks about, you know, how we stampeded through life. But unbeknownst, everybody could see it but me. Like, what is your problem? I didn't intend, you know, that's not what I meant. Right? What is your problem? That's not what I meant. You know, now it took Narcotics Anonymous for me to understand it's not really all about you. You know, if your actions affected them, it's not about what you thought you put down, it's what they picked up. You know, we are not effective communicators. If you didn't pick up what I intended you to pick up, then I haven't communicated effectively. It's not about you. You didn't make a mistake. That's on me. You know, and that's the only thing, you know, that I can change. It's very difficult to stay on your own side of the street, right? Very difficult. It's uncomfortable. You know, it helped me to feel. I remember when I got here, and I could pick out all your faults. I go to you after the meeting and be like, listen, I think you need to be in page 76. Is what really going to help you right now? You know, and maybe it would, but who was working on me? You know, it was so much easier. But we say that, we first see the disease on other people. And then some wise person who had worked a few steps said, well, when do you act that way? Since we're more alike than different. And then, and I found out here that the things I'm violently deny, they're usually a red light indicator. You know, it's like, you act just like her. Oh, hell no. I don't. I know that I don't act like that. You know, and then, but I learned that the violent, you know, we start to learn the violent reaction is usually a red light indicator, and I might need to sit down and get humble about that, because it isn't until I surrender and at least get willing to look at the truth that I'm able to see the things. And the funny thing is, all these things I ran from, when I learned here at Narcotics Anonymous, you all gave me the strength and the fortitude, you know, to start facing these things about myself. And every time I do that, and we go through here at Narcotics Anonymous, not around, over, under, we go through, but every time I do that, I gain freedom. I get more gifts. You know, we receive many benefits here. You know, the evidence is all around us. The coincidences and miracles are just never ending. It's commonplace here. I have to remind myself after years, you know, that hey, you don't become callous to the miracles. You know, just because they happen on a regular basis now, there's not a reason not to stop and be grateful for them. You know, all kind of miracles. We're all here against the odds. You know, day clean is a day one. You know, we're able to show up for people today. Look at all the people that come here to do service. You know, nobody has to drag them here. You know, they come willingly. And we don't do it for the benefits, but the benefits are just automatic when we do it. You know, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. It's an honor and a privilege to be able, our predecessors, can you imagine what it took for us to put together, to put it in written form? If anybody's been to area, right? Strong-willed people thrust together in Narcotics Anonymous. Somehow that basic text was able, that's like divine hand on that, higher power influence that whole operation. These are things that we know that we couldn't accomplish these things on our own. And it's how we do it together is just amazing. We try to follow the principles. I had a nightmare last night. I had a nightmare that we decided in Narcotics Anonymous, I hardly ever remember my dreams, we decided we didn't need to follow traditions anymore. I woke up in a panic. But I love this program. This program has saved my life, and not just mine, like hundreds and thousands, you know, that it has saved. It is very important to me that it's still here for the addicts yet to come. You know, and I just try to keep helping one addict at a time. You know, anybody, you know, I'm always willing to help. That's what we do here. What can I do to help? I'm trying to learn compassion. You know, I'm trying to learn that it's okay if people don't do it my way. You know, I'm trying to learn that it's okay if they're not even doing it Narcotics Anonymous way, just keep coming. You know, just keep coming. You know, because we never know when the miracle's going to happen, and you know what I've been realizing the last year or two? At one point I thought that I had experienced the miracle. You know, they always said, don't leave before the miracle happens. And at one point I thought I had experienced the miracle. Like I was done with that. You know, and as of lately, I mean, we went this summer to my youngest son. He grew up in a program with me. And he's calling me, telling me about principles all the time. But we went to his wedding, and I'm just so proud of him as a young man. And just so my whole family showed up for him. And a lot of them, I mean, that was, you know, that we came from like all corners of the U.S. and met down in Austin. And I was able to help some of them get there. And it's like Narcotics Anonymous did that for me. Narcotics Anonymous did that for me, that I was able to experience that day. Because left to my own devices, I wouldn't have even been there. I wouldn't have been there. How many things that I wasn't there for? These are the things that, like, when I got here, I needed a man, needed a job, probably in that order, right? Probably in that order. You know, needed a job, needed a place to stay, and then I thought I probably needed some type of check, because I was not going to be able, I had never been able to, you know, take care of myself. I'm always going to get fired, or I'm always going to quit. You know, I didn't really think that I could take care of myself long term when I got here. I was really thinking that I was going to need some type of a check, because I really didn't think I could take care of myself. You know, that's what I believed. You know, that turned out, like most everything else I believed, you know, it turned out not to be true. I learned here, I spent my first 5 years in recovery. Once I started to get a hold of this thing, and it took a couple of sponsors, and it took some honesty on my part to make the decision to sit still and to ask somebody to help me that I was afraid of, and to make that commitment. I said, I'm not leaving this late until I work the steps. I'm not going to start adding a whole bunch of life-on-life terms again. This is going to be my priority. And that was the most loving thing I'd ever done for myself. You know, and it felt really hard. And I thought, when I first, because I had been living in like larger cities, you know, so I like, this place is so slow, these people are behind, you know. Now I just don't like to be in the hustle and bustle all the time. But early in recovery, that's where I thought I needed to get to. But I made this, you know, sacrifice. What I thought was a sacrifice turned out to be a gift, you know, and developed a relationship, the conscious contact with the God that I understand that carries me. But what I got at the end of that 5 years is a firm belief that I never have to use again, and that I can be okay anywhere I go, wherever I'm at. All I need is a God of my understanding and a program of Narcotics Anonymous, and I can make it anywhere. I don't expect myself to fail anymore. I know that I can count on myself. You know, I know that I'm gonna take care of myself. Not only me, but part of that 401, you know, stuff is about future Diane. I'm gonna make sure she's okay, because I know Diane is not okay being a burden to society again. I don't ever want to have to be a burden to society again, and that's what I was. I was a big pain in the ass. My mom used to call me that. You're such a pain in the ass. Well, it was true. I'm difficult. We're difficult. We got strong personalities. You know, we're subject. You know, we get things going on in our head. You know, people are like, we get offended. Why are you talking to me like that? Well, I'm your boss. It's my job to tell you what to do. Oh, would you have to say it like that? No. Can you just write it down somewhere? Just give me a list and I'll knock it out. You have to be running around telling me what to do all the damn time. You know, you know, minor problems today, but I mean, that happens, right? It happens, you know. And why do I have to practice principles? You know, people that I work with don't die if they don't practice principles, right? My life is at stake. I need to remember that. I'm not practicing the principles to make their life better. I'm practicing the principles so that I can continue to heal, right? So that I can continue to be here, so that I can continue to help other addicts the way I was helped. There's nothing better than seeing someone, you know, watching the light come on in another addict's eyes, to watch other addicts like grow and just glow and just, I mean, there's no greater privilege like the higher aspiration and then, you know, the heart, you know, is to help somebody else. You know, and I learned that, like, the place of perfect peace, the 11th step talks about when we can set our personal preferences aside, when it's no longer about me. And I experienced that in about 3 years clean. My mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. It was in her pancreas. It was the other addicts here. First thing I did is make my phone calls. She called me and I'm like, okay, Mom, make your peace. I'll be down in the morning. And I made my phone calls. You know, and my sponsor actually worked in a hospice. And he took me through the whole process of what it was going to look like. And then I called another addict who was a nurse and also she had done hospice care for her own dad, and she let me know. She was really rough too, but she let me know exactly what it was going to look like so that I could be prepared. They didn't hide the truth. They gave me what I needed so that I could take care of my mom. And my mom asked me if I would come and move in with her. And that was like the highest honor. That was like, I was the one that my mom cried over night. You know, I was the one that called her from prison. And she was crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? I'm locked up. And she just like, at least you're alive. Like, she didn't know where I was for years on end, you know, and for her to trust me and ask me if I would move in with her and take care of her while she was dying, was just such a great honor that she trusted me for that. And I was in perfect peace, even though that was very painful, but I felt my higher power's presence, but every waking moment was about, is Mom okay? And that's where the peace was. I wasn't thinking about, am I okay? I was thinking about, I was told by my sponsor that this is not happening to you. You're not dying. You need to be there for your family and you need to take care of your mom. You know, and I'm grateful that they didn't baby me. You know, they didn't pour you. Like, I'm over here, no, you're not dying. And I had my time to grieve after I took care of everybody, and then I back to my house on the lake, you know, and but I felt, it said that when we're in our higher power's will, we'll be supplied with the ways, means, and energies, you know, that we need. And I got evidence of that there, you know, and I knew I was definitely not on a 11 step or 12 step. but I was able, to live above my abilities. I was given that gift to be able to live above my abilities at that time, but I also gave me a goal. This is what life should be like. This is where it's peaceful. When I can stop thinking about me and start thinking about other people, and not be so caught up. But I feel like that's just a good place to end. Thanks again, y'all, for letting me be here. Thanks for letting me do service. I love you all. Thanks, Caitlin, for introducing me. Thanks, Daniel, for nominating me. And enjoy the rest of it, please.